Throughout October, I created 4 spooky Halloween-themed videos from the World of Warcraft universe. In this video, I decided to put together a top 10 list to culminate this month of scary stories. That being said, in this list I won't include topics that I've already discussed: The Legend of Stalvin, Pamela's Doll and the Redpath family, Mor'Ladim, and Charles' Creepy Daycare. I've left links in the description below, so feel free to check those out later on as well if you're interested. With top 10 lists, especially from a 16-year-old game, I'm certain you may have heard of one or many of these creepy things in-game before. That being said, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or find a stone that hasn't been turned over, but rather assess some spooky aspects of WoW Classic and formulate my own list. Let's get started. Number 10. Theresa, Mindslave of Gerard. If you've ever spent some time exploring the Undercity, perhaps you've run into Gerard Abernathy, or one of his cruel experiments, Theresa. A little background on Gerard: he could be found in the War Quarter of the Undercity, along with his 2 friends, Leona Tharp and Joanna Whitehall. It is believed that Gerard removed parts of Theresa's brain and messed with other parts of her body as well, for her to become his mind slave. You'll find Theresa, a human female, blindfolded, who delivers items between Gerard and Father Lancaster, the priest trainer. She also speaks gutter speak. Gerard and his friends joke around about Theresa too, as you'll see in their dialogue if you hang out next to them. Number 9. Purgation Island. There's an island south of the Hillsbrad foothills that you might miss unless you're looking for it. You have to swim a little bit to get there, but once you land on this spiral-shaped island, you better be careful. As soon as you approach it, the sky grows dark, reminiscent of a Duskwood-like ambiance. The island has a mysterious, unknown history. It is haunted by high-level elite ghosts of paladins, monks, mages, and priests that are condemned to the island, unable to find peace in death. They're all level 57 plus and elite, as I mentioned, so it's a pretty tough place to explore solo. Once Phase 5 of WoW Classic came out, the island did find itself with a purpose in being part of the Tier 0.5 questline for Horde, entitled Components of Importance, where players must collect soul ashes of the banished from the undeads on the island. Number 8. Dawning Woods Catacombs in Ravenhill Cemetery. Anyone who's quested in Duskwood knows that Ravenhill Cemetery is sprawling with undead, spiders, gangs of grave robbers, and other certain perils. And as I mentioned, 2 of my previous videos covered the stories of Stalvin Mistmantle and Mor'Ladim of Duskwood. There are many other notable, creepy quests in the zone, with one being the lore surrounding Morbent Fell, a necromancer who rules undead minions from his home atop the Forlorn Row in Ravenhill Cemetery. Close by to his home, you'll find an entrance to a vast series of catacombs underground. The first time I ventured down there, I was amazed at how massive they were, and even more so if you enter the catacombs from the Ravenhill Cemetery side. Not only are you met with groups of undead, but as you travel deeper in, to a spot where you think you've reached the end, you may see a secret, dark, muddy passageway that leads directly to his laboratory. If you take a look around, you could see that undoubtedly horrendous experiments are being conducted here. Truly a creepy, somewhat hidden area if you aren't too keen on exploring, but definitely worth checking out. Number 7. The Karazhan Crypts. This is more of an honorable mention more than anything, because how could I make this top 10 list without including the mysterious Karazhan Crypts? It's pretty much included in all of the top scary, creepy, mysterious area videos, so I'll keep this one short. While in Classic, players cannot yet enter the Tower of Karazhan, the crypts found behind it are quite extensive if you can find a way to get in them. I had the chance to explore these on the WoW Classic beta, and I was truly creeped out by what I saw. Just like the Dawning Woods catacombs in Ravenhill, these crypts are incredibly vast. It's got long tunnels, piles of skeletons, and a very creepy emptiness to it. The part that stood out most to me was the underwater area with a bunch of corpses floating underwater, bound by chains. Number 6. Hanging Corpses in Deadwind Pass. Since I mentioned the underwater corpses in the Karazhan Crypts, that definitely reminded me of Deadwind Pass. I feel like this is a zone that isn't frequented by many, and if so, it's only to, as the name suggests, pass through. I've always been interested in this zone, exploring its contents. Since we're sticking a WoW Classic here, as Karazhan wasn't yet available to enter, These hanging corpses really stand out to me. They're one of the first things you see when you enter Deadwind Pass. Cold, pale, rotting, some with missing limbs, all of the life drained from them. Who were these people? Why are they in Deadwind Pass? And who put them there? Also bonus points for the spooky faces on the trees. Number 5. The Hanging Corpse in the Dalaran Crater. And well, since we're on the topic of hanging corpses, if you travel west of the Dalaran Crater in the Alterac Mountains, you'll find an area patrolled by Dalaran wizards and their rock elemental minions. If you look carefully among the ruins, you may spot something incredibly dark and creepy in broad daylight. Within the crater, you'll find a corpse with a bluish, purple color hanging from the gallows. Just like the corpses in Deadwind Pass, not much is known about this either, but I will tell you a funny side story. Many of you know my roommate Pasta Face. Well, I kid you not. I swear I'm not making this story up either because I witnessed it firsthand. But one day, a few weeks ago, she logged onto her WoW Classic Shaman, level 60, and her character was standing right on the gallows, in front of this empty noose right here. We could not figure out how she got there. She was certain she had last logged her character out in town, and we also checked her account wasn't hacked. My only guess was perhaps she was in flight and got disconnected but forgot. I know sometimes people can get dropped off flying mounts or disconnected and left in weird areas. We both just found it incredibly odd, and not to mention unsettling, that she logged in to find her character standing directly underneath an empty noose in this random area. Does anyone know how this could have possibly happened? Number 4. Footprints in the Sand. Perhaps not as evidently dark as the previous entries so far, but this is still something I recently came to learn and wanted to share. Have you ever noticed trails of footprints in the sand of Tanaris? A few you'll find originating just outside Gadgetzan. Some split off into different trails. If you follow them, however, almost all of them end in some unfortunate scene. You'll find lost weapons and even piles of bones. In one particular trail, you'll find quite a bloody massacre. What could have gone on here? One trail that I did follow, however, led me to the Caverns of Time. Pretty mysterious, and something subtle that I normally wouldn't have paid attention to. Number 3. Dr. Theolen Krastinov, the Butcher. One of the most sinister, evil characters you may encounter in WoW Classic is Dr. Krastinov. Known as the Butcher, his name accurately describes what he does. He's the main torturer and provider of body parts for Scolomance's experiments in necromancy. According to lore, Ava Sarkov was the head maid of the Barov residence in Caer Darrow. She was married to Alexei Barov's butler, Lucian Sarkov. When the Barov family accepted Kel'Thuzad's offer of immortality, Ava and Lucian hid in the corridors of the Caer Darrow keep. They stole food from their former masters and survived that way for months. And in those months, they watched horrors of the Scourge arriving to gain further training in the arts of necromancy on a daily basis. But then, it happened. They were discovered by the undead, and they were used for experiments of Dr. Theolen Krastinov. They were tortured for days and weeks, and denied death by magical means. When finally the doctor was finished with them and they fell to death's embrace, it was but a short pleasure. Lucian and Ava were revived, and fed to the ghouls who devoured them. Now their spirits are trapped in Azeroth, and they ask adventurers to travel to Scholomance and burn their remains, so that they may finally rest for eternity. Ava Sarkov describes Dr. Krastinov's tortures. The undead surrounded us, constantly tormenting us with horrifying acts of depravity. Finally, he came. He introduced himself as Dr. Theolen Krastinov. We came to know him as the Butcher. We finally understood what the screams were from. The Butcher exposed us to pain that we did not know existed. He used us in countless experiments to devise a plague. The days turned to weeks. We would have died on that first day had it not been for that cruel bastard keeping us alive through magical means. We feel nothing. Our souls remain here, in limbo. We are unable to leave until our remains are found and spirits laid to rest. Truly an absolutely horrifying story surrounding the lore of Scholomance. Number 2. Abercrombie and Stitches. Two well-known characters of the Duskwood lore, with both of their names referencing an American apparel chain. Abercrombie is a human quest giver in Ravenhill Cemetery, and also known as the Embalmer. He was a kindly alchemist who was driven mad by the death of his wife, Eliza. To restore her, he used dark magic to place his own heart within the bosom of his dead spouse. This revived Eliza, but it cursed her with a hunger for human flesh, forcing the Embalmer to keep her buried. Through a series of quests, unsuspecting adventurers aid Abercrombie in creating the horrible abomination Stitches. He and Stitches then attack Darkshire and are put down by the Nightwatch and Alliance adventurers. But I'd have to say that Stitches is one of the most well-known, hostile NPCs in all of WoW Classic, an iconic part of Duskwood whose name is always included when reminiscing of that zone. Number 1. Thaddius. With Phase 6 of WoW Classic approaching shortly, I felt putting Thaddius at number 1 was most appropriate. Somewhere deep, inside the cursed necropolis Naxxramas, you'll find the final boss of the Abomination Wing, Thaddius. Behind large, iron-bound doors, found within an ominous laboratory. At first glance, he appears to be a Frankenstein-looking monster, somewhat of an abomination, sewn together with human parts and machinery alike. Leading up to Thaddius, you'll hear screams of that of a woman or young child echoing throughout the halls of Naxxramas that stop after Thaddius dies. As lore will tell you, Thaddius was constructed by members of the Scourge, presumably Kel'Thuzad, and was made from the bodies of dead women and children harvested by the Scourge. Turns out, those screams you hear are souls trapped from the victims, begging to be released from their eternal torment. Thaddius, too, seems to have somewhat of a sentience for his existence, stating,
"You are too late. I must obey."
And upon his death, he will say,
"Thank you."
Once I discovered the lore behind Thaddius, in combination with discovering what the terrifying screams were, I had to rank Thaddius as one of the creepiest, spookiest things in all of WoW Classic. And with that, my top 10 creepy and spooky things in Classic WoW has concluded. Are there any things in the list that you were unaware of? What are some things that you think I should have included? I'm pretty happy with the 10 things that I chose, but there's always more. Some things obvious, and others you have to search a little bit harder to find. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and all of my other creepy WoW lore videos. If you do like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Big shout out to all of my patrons who support this content over at patreon.com/warcraftbrew, and you could head on over there too if you'd like to support the channel further. Don't forget to check out the links to my Twitch, Twitter, and guides on WoWHEAD in the description of this video. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a very spoopy Halloween.